So, yeah. I mean, I think it's on. They all follow right? So, what did you say? Right, are we up and going for the time being?
Yeah. This is question about how we're going to vote.
Just talking about
We're
that.
gonna write it down, right, and hand it.
We were talking about just someone making a motion and taking a vote.
But I think it, shows use the results, when you have so many people voting for one person or another, I think writing it, you vote on a piece of paper and with your name and have an idea is, you know, less likely to, you know, because you hear how everyone's voting, and you might chicken out, or you might decide not to go for somebody.
I'm fine with that, and that's how it's all we're gonna do it. Yeah, so.
It's
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
good
it's
to select
a paper.
and take a few. Yes, definitely. Probation. And then who's online? I mean, Nat, Howard, Nat and Bert are gonna,
They're gonna have the.
We're gonna have to email me.
They're gonna have.
email,
Yeah.
chat, you know, chat enabled for.
We're gonna send it to email. Okay. Are we recording live?
Yeah, we're good to go.
All right. Welcome everyone to the June 23rd meeting of the Nantucket Planning and Economic Development Commission. Call this meeting in order. To take a quick roll call to use here. Hillary.
Here.
John.
Yeah.
Christina.
Here.
Abby. She fall off. Is she coming down?
She might be. She said she had a babysitter coming at 5.
Oh, okay. Nat.
Here,
Yes.
Brigham.
Mike Mazzarelli here. Bert Johnson.
Here.
Joe Topham here. Did I miss anyone?
This is-
Okay, and for staff members, we have Meg Trudell and Leslie Snell.
Here, I heard you. Who was talking about the. That's what I thought you meant.
So first of all is the election of Chair Pro Tem. Since we don't have a vice chair in the room and our chair is no longer our chair, you direct someone to run a meeting. And typically it's the planning board chair, so I just need to have that recognized by a vote. Right?
Move to elect David Iverson as chair pro tem.
Second.
A motion made by Hillary, seconded by John. It has to be roll call through people online. Hillary.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Christina.
Aye.
Abby.
She was texting me, she's
Nat.
en route.
Oh, Nat.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Bert.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Thank you for trusting me to this. Sorry for you guys, but, okay, so, I entertain a motion for approval of the agenda, please. So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mike, seconded by Joe. Mike,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Hillary,
Aye.
Christina,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Bert. Bert,
Aye.
thank you. Did I miss anyone? Okay, that's unanimous. Next is public comment for items not included on the agenda. Anyone interested in making a public comment? All right. First, on our agenda is the Weston Sampson presentation of the build out analysis.
Give me a second, I'll move these guys over to the panelists.
Mr. Chairman, we have Joanna Nato and Dan Sheehan from Weston and Sampson. We've been working with them for quite some time on the build out.
Great. Welcome, Joanna.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. And I believe Dan's here as well. He can introduce himself.
Great. Welcome, Dan.
So yes, I'm Dan Sheehan with Weston and Sampson.
Dan, we can barely hear you.
Let me try to turn my speaker up. Great.
Even leaning in, I don't know, Dan, maybe if you got a little closer.
Move a little closer too, I think.
Yeah, I tried that last time. All right, well, can you hear me? Okay. I'll try to speak up louder.
Speak up a little louder, I think we'll be good.
All right. So my name is Dan Sheehan with Weston Sampson. I'm a senior associate project manager. I've been working with the town for about 9 years, mostly on wastewater projects. So one of those projects was the 2020 sewer master plan, where we looked at the sewer needs areas and tried to develop some build out for those areas. And as part of that project, we worked hand in hand with the planning department, sewer department, town admin, and basically went through each of the sewer needs areas and did a parcel by parcel evaluation to determine the sewer flows and how much build out there would be. But again, that was a very small area in town as compared to the entire town. So based on that work, the town asked us to do a build out analysis for the remaining areas of the town. And that's what we're here to present to you tonight, our 2025 update. So I'll turn this over to Joanna, who's our senior planner with Weston Sampson. And she'll walk you through.
Sounds good. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So I'm a senior planner at Weston and Sampson and have been involved in this project more the last year or two. And we're just really excited to bring this in front of the commission and give you an overview of what we've accomplished in this study, but most importantly, where it might lead you next. Can you see my slides okay?
Yes.
Great. So just to understand the potential scale of future housing development, the town of Nantucket commissioned this build out study to calculate the maximum capacity for new dwelling units on the island under current land use regulations and environmental constraints, including climate change impacts from sea level rise and storm surge, and how quickly demand for housing might reach that maximum capacity if all potential lots and dwelling units were to be created. The purpose of this report was to provide you all with technical information and data and locations of the current development potential, and that's the build out, to inform your policy decision-making and future planning efforts for water, wastewater, infrastructure, transportation, and master planning. So just to define the term, with build out analysis specifically is mapping the location of all developable land in a jurisdiction using GIS and calculating the number of housing units that could result if all buildable land was developed. As Dan mentioned, this was meant to complement the previous sewer master plan study, which was just looking at projected development for targeted areas relevant to your potential sewer expansion areas. So I just want to show you here the sort of major tasks, how we undertook this. We started by taking out the parcels that were already analyzed from the sewer master plan. We then took out parcels that cannot be developed because of land protection or environmental constraints. And then we analyzed the buildable area on the remaining lots to get estimates of possible additional dwelling units and subdivided lots. So that's the build out analysis. But to better inform your decision making, we felt and staff felt that this analysis should include updating projections of likely development, which is an important distinction I want to make here, that it's important to consider your possible policy changes driven by directing development where you want it from that build out analysis. But the timeline and the sort of patterns of actual development, it's perhaps more of interest because I'm sure we all know not every parcel that could be developed will be. So in 2022, the first stage of this project was done to assess development potential considering environmental and zoning constraints. We delivered a draft at that time. And then we were asked by the town in the summer of 2024 to pick that back up and verify zoning, lot constraints, and update the projected building numbers. So we've met with planning staff a few times throughout the project to ground truth the numbers, most recently in March. So all the data should be updated as of March of 2025. And those ground truth checks helped us correct some of the data quality concerns that came in through both some of the town data sets and Mass GIS data sets around protected layers, and helped us make sure our buildable area calculations were accurate. This is just to give you an outline, sorry, of the report. It includes a discussion of the build-out analysis, which includes the constraints from zoning and environmental regulations. It includes a discussion of possible future housing demand and projections that are based on recent development and population projections. And then it includes parcel level tables of data, sort of what we found and what we calculated for each parcel's development based on our methodology, a detailed methodology write-up, and a series of maps. So I'm going to just share some highlights from the report today, and hopefully we can get your input on any particular summaries that might be missing that we need to make sure and include. And of course, answer any clarifying questions. So our guiding questions for this build out were not just how many residents and dwelling units could possibly occur on the island, but perhaps more significantly, what likely build out might look like through 2050. So a standard analysis for projecting build out uses population trends. We developed a range, in part because the past doesn't always indicate the future, and because Nantucket clearly has some unique population dynamics that don't conform to our standard projection assumptions. So there's a key decision point here, which trends to use for projections. And so we're just going to talk through kind of some of the assumptions that we made. So when we look back at the middle sort of average population growth from the last 5 decades in the town, we get about 2.7%. That's sort of our first crack at likely development going forward, could follow that same rate. If we were to assume a household size of 2.78, which is the current household size, and that whether all new residents would demand new housing, that could lead to a demand for roughly 6,000 new dwelling units. So that's down here. If we were to use the lowest level of population growth that has been observed in the last 50 years, that would be about a 0.5%. Then that dwelling unit demand could be something much more like 800 roughly dwelling units by 2050. So we've provided, again, in the report, we've got the full tables of all these numbers, each of these levels of population growth projected, and the estimated dwelling units that might be demanded from that population. But our feeling is that seasonal demands really drive your housing more than year-round population changes. So we thought that looking at actual development patterns might be more reliable. So when we use the average number of dwelling units that were created in sort of the previous 5 years, we estimated ranges of rates of development that would give us about 209 units a year. If we carried that out to 2050, that would result in roughly 5,400 new dwelling units. And we know that the rate of units built in the last 5 years was probably higher than the previous 20. So you could assume that this might be an upper range if sort of past longer term trends continue. So we've seen now projections for 2050 demand for new dwelling units ranging from 800 to 6,000. I think that upper range more closely matches the average development trends. So, we would suggest that you could see as much as 5,000 to 6,000 new dwelling units in these areas by 2050, but probably not more than that. I'm going to move on now to talk about the possible build out. So the other area of focus for this analysis was what amount of development could be accommodated on the existing parcels on the island, given current and future constraints. So we evaluated the maximum potential for development of housing, giving environmental constraints and current regulatory and zoning allowances through a GIS analysis. We used existing parcel information and overlaid natural resources maps and zoning, as well as information about existing dwelling units. As I mentioned, we relied on the zoning as of March 2025 and environmental GIS layers available from Mass GIS. I just want to point out here that This is all based on data that is changing and is not perfect, and that's why we've done some ground truthing. But we are going to give you some ranges and try to just be clear about the assumptions so that you understand kind of, this is what we get if we do it this way. Surely you could get a different number if you, tweak the data or tweak the assumptions. We asked two major questions. Could this parcel be subdivided into additional lots, given zoning and environmental constraints? And could this parcel add dwelling units, either on the existing lot and or on additional subdivided lots? So the first step, as I mentioned before, was to take out all the parcels that are undevelopable. I'm using available information about protected lands from the state, federal, and local sources. We then used environmental constraints layers to determine developable area on each parcel. That was used then for the maximum ground cover area to determine buildable area. So each parcel came out of GIS with information on its developable area, existing buildings, and lot size. Based on this analysis, we've got two types of situations. So we have parcels that can't be further subdivided. So we were estimating just the number of dwelling units that could be added given total dwelling units allowed by that zoning district. And then we looked at parcels that could be subdivided. So we counted how many more lots could be created on that parcel, and then how many dwelling units could be added on both the existing and new lots. So all told, we found room for roughly 11,000 new dwelling units and 900 new lots. So we're looking at, something between 600 and 900 new lots. And in all, that would add up to a total of, on the island, 7,000 lots and 17,000 dwelling units that could be accommodated if every single parcel was maximum build out. So I just want to summarize the findings. So we started by looking at about 11,200 parcels that were not covered in the sewer master plan. There were about 1,700, a little more over 1,700 of those that were not developable already because of land protection or environmental constraints. We're looking at possible additional dwelling units that could occur at maximum build out of between 9,600 and 12,000. And we project that actual development by 2050 would probably be, at most 5,000 or 6,000 dwelling units. I'm going to just skip through. There's a couple other reference slides in here that if we wanted to dig into kind of any of the zoning, just so you know what we use for calculations, you've got that, I think, in your packet. Just that we use minimum lot size and ground cover ratio to determine the buildable area or subdividable area for lots. And then how we constructed the calculations for additional dwelling units related to dwelling units that were already there versus what's possible for the district, plus additional lots and max dwelling units. So what you'll find in the report when it's completed will be maps like this one of where development is expected, which parcels are expected to have additional lots or dwelling units. As I mentioned, we'll have tables and we'll actually summarize by zoning district, as well as the town and country overlay districts, so you can see where additional lots and dwelling units are possible. And then just think about if there's any other summaries of the information that you want to make sure get included in the final report. So the takeaway would be, Nantucket's currently at approximately 35 to 40% of build out. There could be as many as 12,000 dwelling units that could be added if literally every possible spot was built out. I do also have some information here on some example parcels just to show how this works. So just for one example, a parcel that's roughly 20,000 square feet in the R1 district. Once we remove the environmental constraints and the ground cover, we've got about 15,800 square feet left over. And so an additional 2 lots could be subdivided out of this. Same thing on this side, just to give you a flavor for the calculations. But again, these are not projections. These are just to explain how the current zoning ordinance would operate as it's established in these areas. The last thing I want to mention is the sea level rise. We did do an analysis to look at sea level rise as a possible constraint on future build out. As you may know, there's not currently a regulatory piece of sea level rise and storm surge, but that may change. And regardless, shoreline changes may discourage development in some of these areas. So we did run these calculations to find how much sea level rise might affect parcels that could subdivide, kind of removing that buildable lot area out. And it does remove the total dwelling units slightly and the total number of buildable lots, but not to the point that would really majorly change the findings, I think. So all in all, at the current rate of development and population growth that's occurred in the last 5 to 10 years, you could see getting to 65 to 69% of max build out by 2050. We can't predict the future, so this is just meant to explain what development might look like if current rates and current zoning hold steady. There's actually only a few areas where this would happen. There's only a few areas where there are lots that could be subdivided. Many residential parcels can't be subdivided further. And then just for you to know that you have enough land to accommodate rather large population growth. And even if we had 2050 sea level rise projections. So, I mean, you all know this depends on the decisions of private individuals, what actually happens on each parcel. So from the town's perspective, we see your possible next steps in the following areas. To consider whether projected growth can be accommodated with your current infrastructure. So roads, water and wastewater, et cetera. To think about, are there changes you want to make to your zoning to direct or manage future growth and housing demands? So for example, if you don't think the maximum possible build out from your zoning is acceptable, then that would suggest you might want to adjust your zoning or increase restrictions on buildings. And somewhat importantly around housing, you know, it's going to be important to think about what types of housing you desire and what people will be demanding and whether it can be accommodated without harming the character of the island. So something like height limitations on additional dwelling units might be something to consider to kind of help direct additional housing the way you want it. So this obviously brings up a lot of things to think about. We know you're in the middle of a master planning process, which is actually the perfect time to start to think about these questions. But we want to make sure and get this information in front of you, give you a chance to ask some questions and let us know if there's anything in particular you want us to pull out in that report. So thank you guys so much for listening. I'm happy to take any questions.
Great. No, thank you very much. Board members, questions?
I have just some clarifying questions, just some things, Joanna, that I was a little confused about. First of all, thank you so much for the presentation and the report about the sewer plan. So I didn't understand. Well, my first question is, there were a lot of, in that sewer plan, and I went back and looked at the map, there are a lot of sewer needs areas, and those are the areas that are the most populous, like the whole Somerset Road area, Nantucket. There are a lot of sewer needs areas. So did you also exclude those, or did you just exclude the area where we have sewer?
Yeah, those were excluded. Those are part of the sewer master plan. The needs areas identified in the comprehensive wastewater management plan, that includes Hummock North, Hummock South, Nantucket, Maya Comet, Somerset area. Yeah, those were all excluded. Those projections were done as part of the master plan.
Right, like all the area by the airport. So my question was, why don't we put why aren't we doing a build out analysis of the whole island, since what was the rationale for, since you've already done a build out analysis leading to sewer and wastewater forecast, why didn't you fold it into this report? What's the rationale for separating them?
Well, the sewer master plan was done back in 2020. And then following the completion of that report, that was done to size the collection system and the downstream capacity and things like that. Following that, the town asked us to look at the rest of the town in a similar manner, but because for the unsewered, the areas are not part of the sewer master plan, unsewered areas.
Right. It's just hard when we're talking about a build out. I just think that as we talk about it, everyone should be aware that we're only talking about the build out of comparatively less populated area. And I didn't know how to integrate the information or what the benefit for us doing analysis was of only looking. Obviously there's always benefit of looking for information, but does everybody know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? I mean, this is the sewer master plan. Yeah. It's like all these areas are not included in these numbers.
Yes.
So what would it look like if they were?
Yeah, or what are we missing? What's the benefit of maybe looking at those?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I can speak to the justification. I was not totally involved in the earliest stages of the project, but I can just tell you that the number of potential additional dwelling units that we had in the sewer master plan was 671. And we can certainly put in a section at the end of this report that would kind of just summarize the two together, if that total would be a little more helpful to give you it all kind of in one spot.
I think it would be. Yeah, I mean, everyone agree? Yes. So if that could be added, that would be great.
Great.
I'm not gonna put you off here. Bruce, I'm just taking questions from the board right now, but I will get back to you when we get to the public. Hillary, are you done? You have more questions?
That was like I do have more questions, but they're more discussion questions. That was like a clarifying question, so.
Okay, okay. Any other board members? Yes.
John or Daniel, is there any way to, when we look at these numbers of lots, is there any way to divide them into areas that, let's say, would more likely be year-round residences versus those that would most likely or more likely be seasonal residents? And the reason I have that in my mind is because the impact is different for those two groups. So is there any way to, as we look at those maps, to make some kind of, assessments, judgments of what might be there that's going to help year-round residents and what's not?
Leslie, I don't want to put you on the spot. I'm trying to think about the data that we've seen. We haven't done that, obviously, but trying to think about what data exists that would allow us to make that distinction, if there is any at the town level.
Yeah, so we could make that distinction, I think, by somehow mapping the year-round tax exemption lots.
Right.
Because you would know that those are year-round occupied, and we can identify the areas where most of those exist. And remember, this is all outside of the sewer district, so it's probably overall less year-round than inside the sewer district. But Joanna and I had talked about that a while ago, and I don't know why we didn't proceed with that, or maybe it was in a different context, but that's certainly something that we could look into to figure that out.
I think it would be worthwhile, Liz, just because the implications are different, for seasonal versus year-round.
Well, I kind of building on that, John, though, you could even layer over, if you're talking about the taxes, the tax implications as well. Because if we're gonna look at it year-round versus seasonal, I mean, yes, you have this build out, but there is gonna be tax implications to that too.
And don't forget, we got $6.5 million for a year buying affordable housing, so that can even.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, I mean, I was just looking at one of the examples, 10 Lincoln Avenue that you had. That house sold for 16 million, I think it was, in 2021. So these two additional lots are not likely to be anything else other than seasonal.
I think it's important to remember, and Joanna touched on it, that for any of this to be real, it takes actions from property owners, right? It's not just gonna happen, boom. I mean, yes, we have a rate of development that stays fairly consistent, but I am sure we have lots on this island, privately owned, that are 70 acres. Now, does anyone sitting at this table think that those are gonna be subdivided into housing neighborhoods? No, those properties, if they ever leave the family, I'm 90% positive they're gonna go to conservation or land bank. They're not gonna be subdivided and developed. So I think that we need to kind of take this with a grain of salt, understand that it's illustrative to what could happen. There's no guarantees that it won't happen, but I think that I think that there's a lot of big properties that can skew this that will never end up being housing developments. I mean, Greenleafs will never be a housing development. There's some huge lots in Quays that will never be housing development. So, yes, this is an important document. Yes, the numbers are real, but it takes a lot for them to become real, is I guess my viewpoint.
Dave, I have a comment too.
Yes, please.
One trend that I've seen over the past couple of years, and I wouldn't classify it as year-round housing, but I would classify it as seasonal, is some people that have the resources to buy a house and put their seasonal staff in it for for the season, and those can be almost anywhere.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that would be a big enough thing that would skew numbers, but it's certainly, a trend that people, because rentals aren't available.
Yeah, yeah. And they're, I mean, I think that goes into, they're probably buying. Locals are selling their houses and they're buying them. And
Takes it off the market.
it takes it away from the locals having the ability.
Yeah, and I also am saying that more people want that 1 acre instead of 3 lots or 4 lots, and being in this cluster. They would rather have that larger, and I think that there was a trend to subdivide, and I feel like that's people are pushing back, like, we don't want that.
Yeah,
There's one gentleman, he regrets not buying the lot next door and making it one and bring it back.
yeah.
And he still is like, I wish I had done that. But he says, but now I'm gonna go try and find that other lot. So it's a trend that we need to kind of get ahead of, and to the point of, Greenleaf. Hopefully someone's had a conversation with them and say, hey, if you ever do this, can you come to, Wisconsin Trust, Nantucket, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Land bank, or, that agreement is in place to protect it. So, I mean, I think we've done a really good job, but I think seeing some of these numbers, it's kind of.
And it's not just subdivision either, right? I mean, they take into account secondary and tertiary dwellings. And a lot of people aren't gonna build secondary tertiaries on their property. Some will, but not everyone that has those available to them are gonna take advantage of them. So I think the numbers are scary. I think. But I'm not sure that we're gonna realize it. Very quickly is my point. I'm not saying it's not possible.
I know, and I think the other thing, sorry, jump in, I know. But I kind of feel like while these master plans are going on, all the groups are formulated together, that some of this would be like, hey, can you look at this in your area, really have them
Yeah,
kind of drilled on it. I know probably Bruce is gonna jump on and say that Nantucket doesn't want this change. They don't want to see this expansion or whatever it is.
yeah,
So how do they come back to the planning board and say, they already came back and said, we want the VR zone. So how do we restrict this a little bit more? How do we protect this part of it?
and yeah, this isn't a planning board plan for expansion. This is,
No.
this is just, this is just the reality of what the possibilities are. And then Joanna, I noticed that you had a purple block ensconce on the. And I think that's the golf club. Is that in your numbers?
Yes, it is. So that's an interesting example. And this is where we've talked about this a bit with staff too, is like, that's not, again, right. It's not a plan for development. It's not a suggestion of development, but it is saying like 50 to 100 years from now, that property is not technically, doesn't have a conservation restriction on it. Somebody could sell it. Somebody could choose to put houses on it. So it is counted as a potential for future development.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mike had a hand up to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that Mike?
Do something?
No, I know you're taking board comments, so I'm happy to sit back and let the board discuss. I just had a few things I wanted to mention.
Okay.
I had one other clarifying question. So on slide 10, you said that there were 17,000 potential units, but then elsewhere you said there were 10,000 to 12,000 potential dwelling units. What was the difference between those two numbers?
Right. Yeah. Hold on. I was just trying to pull that up. Basically, the larger number is if you add existing to future, and the smaller number is just the future.
Total.
So yeah, like total units on the island versus new units. Yeah.
Total in the areas outside the sewer
Yes.
plus
Thank
sewer
you.
area.
Right. Correct.
Okay. I have one question about potential analysis that could be useful to the planning board. The planning board recommended a positive vote at town meeting on an article that would change by right development of these lots divided because of pre-existing dwellings that have been there since before 1955. And it was voted down closely because there was just a lot of concern that maybe we didn't know where these lots are, or we didn't know how many there were. We didn't know if people would feel that they didn't want to give up that right and it hadn't been asked. Does your data include, when you went lot by lot to look at these areas, did you look at the construction date of outbuildings, or can you get that data?
With 41.
4181.
Yeah, these are 4181 out, which I'm sure doesn't mean anything to most people, but this is, did you look at, do you have analysis about dwellings that are outbuildings? They're not actually dwelling units, but they could be converted in the data construction. Is that in your data set?
Dan, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's in the data, but we were just counting dwelling units. Yeah, not buildings. So I believe it's in the data layer, but we haven't like verified. This is the thing, is every piece of data we'd have to like figure out, is it right in the data layer? And so maybe we could do that with the existing data, but
So it's a huge project, but it is on Nantucket a source of additional development because we have granted pre-existing non-conforming status to any lot, whether it's, you know, irregular or not. If it was divided through the 4181L process and it has a garage, a chicken coop, you know, a tool shack, we've by habit on the island interpreted that as being developable into a dwelling unit. Okay. So we don't think there are a lot of them, but it could affect your study. So I wanted to bring it up.
Well, I guess the question would be, does it allow them to go beyond the maximum number of dwelling units per, like, does it give them an extra dwelling unit, or is it just they can use that for the dwelling unit?
Well, it doesn't currently have a dwelling unit on it. It has like a garage. And
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It gives them ability to subdivide something that wouldn't otherwise be subdividable, is what it comes down to.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry.
Is there a code on the town's GIS that would have that listed? Because what was the 1481 that you said, Hillary? I'm not aware of that.
4181L, it's a state zoning bylaw.
Yeah, it's just in chapter 41 of the state code, section 81L means that anyone can divide a parcel of land based on having a structure that was existing before the subdivision control. It's like pre-existing subdivision control. And you can do that, but we on Nantucket, a bunch of years ago, we gave the right to make those lots created through that chapter buildable. So it would be interesting as part of this build out study to know if there are a lot of those.
Anything else?
Yeah, I also felt like the thing that I hope to get out of your report is, as you had one of the takeaways being housing demand and projections. That's related to population growth, as John brought up. That's a little bit of a difficult topic here because you can't go off the census to think about population necessarily here. But that map that you had with the blue squares and the purple squares, I thought that was an extremely useful map to identify where we are likely to see development. And I slightly disagree with Dave's view that, you know, oh, well, it's not going to develop because someone dies and you got a bunch of kids and then suddenly, you know, there's a subdivision. And so I think if we could be aware of where the zoning, the by right zoning, where it really is a departure from what we have today and what we kind of think will always be there, I think we should flag that for this team because those are the areas where we might propose a rezoning. And also where we have this undeveloped land, we could propose a housing development of a different type than is currently zoned for, because we don't want to see, you know, another lollipop subdivision with a, you know, what was proposed for fairgrounds. We actually want to get ahead of that and say, this is where we want a cluster development, or this is where we want some different. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the analysis of that map so that we can geospatially see the potential, both to codify what's already there in a way that we want in our code, and then also encourage the kind of development that is the more affordable housing and different types of housing. That's what I'm hoping to get out of your report.
That will definitely be in there. And in fact, we won't just give you kind of a tiny little map. We'll give you the, you know, kind of full zoom in PDF. You can get in there and look at each parcel. So definitely you will get that.
Great. Thanks. Any other board members? You know, venture out into the public after Mike Burns here. Oh, hold on, Mike.
Yeah.
Mr. Lowell.
Yeah, I can't, let it go. So this question I'm going to bring up, well, not a question, it's a comment. My first one is going to be, Joe brought it up, actually. I didn't think of it right away, and then he said it, about how some property owners actually buy their neighbor's property to increase their ground cover. Everybody's in a different ground cover position. This study is a ground cover analysis. There's only about 2.7% of Nantucket that is open space privately owned. And as Dave said earlier, a lot of it is single gigantic owners that own a ton of property. So it's really probably more like 1.5. So up on the cliff, and this is for Megan and Leslie and whoever wants to answer it, there's R20 all through Hinckley. It's all R20. And then you have R1 up to Pilgrim Road. That zoning was sort of left alone when we got rid of all the RC2 and really tackled the really high density 50% ground cover zoning that was commercial residential. And we really went to work 2005 to 2017 to get rid of that. But there's a lot of zoning out there that is sort of, I call it lucky zoning, especially up there, where they have 12.5% ground cover with lots way over 20,000 square feet. And I think that's what Joe is alluding to a little bit with some of these high-end properties that take advantage of the zoning that's there, that was there a long, long time ago. Okay. Now, the consultants, I think, have done a really good job. The one thing that hasn't been mentioned yet, and you just put it up on the screen, is actually exactly what I want to talk about next. The amount of the island that is, in, buildable potential land is in low density zoning is what, over 80%? What is the number for that, Leslie?
It is
It's
87.
87. So those are the kind of things that the general public needs to know. Because when you see a number, 9,000, 6,000, it scares people. But those houses are not going to be built in any short order because of the cost of building. An off-island owner, and this is a good one for Joe, when an off-island owner buys property here, they likely build it out to its ground cover in most cases because they can afford it. Whereas in the past, all the old-time Nantucket property owners, including me, didn't build their property beyond what they wanted to build it at the time because it was cheap. That nobody was thinking about, well, I better put a house over here in the corner because I'm going to add another one over here. They put the houses right in the middle of the lot and kind of made it so that you really couldn't actually add to it the correct way. So long and short of this comment I'm making is more about the infill development versus fresh, new virgin land building. And then the other one, Leslie, and I know you're working on this, and this is extremely important. How many houses, brand new, are built on lots where they tear down a house? It's not a new house. Well, it's a new house, but it's not like somebody just bought a second car and kept the other car. There's no more second. The other car is gone. We need to have these numbers so that people understand when they see 210 new dwellings on Nantucket. Okay, 210 new dwellings on what land? On land that already had houses? On land that they added a house or they tore down houses? All the houses in Pocomo that I worked on down at the end, they're all gone now. And they weren't that old. But they're new houses now, they're going to get built. But that doesn't mean that there was not houses there a year ago. Thank you, Dave.
No, good to hear you, Nat.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mike Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I sent Leslie and Megan the comments as well, but just so you all know as well, on slide 5, there was the population projections, and we do have population projections that we do as part of the long-range transportation plan. There's a population chart that goes along with that that's kind of similar to that, just so you all know. In our transportation plan, I think in 2050, we're built out to more than 19,000 population, or like a 1.5% growth rate. It's kind of, that chart is very difficult to read. I don't know if you can change it into a table format to where the numbers are actually below the chart and not incorporated in. It's a little difficult to read that, but just so you all know, we're in more than 19,000 in 2050, not the 40,000 that's shown as the more aggressive growth rate of 3.5%. The other comment I wanted to make is if there's anything else to show in the charts, I kind of mentioned this at all of our meetings, and I think the consultant has this, is our town overlay district. A big thesis of the master plan and what am I trying to say? The land use strategy for the master plan was a town and country pattern of development. We kind of like to track that as part of the master plan development and kind of see where growth has been happening. I kind of suspect it's been more in the country district rather than the town district, but that's really good to understand where the growth potential is. Is it in the country or is it in the town? That's a very important thing to kind of clarify. And I say that to say that we have procurement about to be released on a traffic demand forecast model that's going to use a lot of these numbers. And anybody who deals with congestion in the transportation industry knows that there's 3 kinds of ways to deal with congestion. One of those ways is with a land use pattern, and that's why the town and country pattern development was picked. We needed to have uses like residential and commercial, and where that growth is happening and where all that's concentrated. It all needs to happen within proximity so that you can have opportunities for biking and walking, things that you can walk within proximity of where you want to go or take the bus. That's extremely important if that's going to work. And that's why this needs to be something that does consider a town overlay district. And if there's going to be changes, maybe we focus development within those areas because that's going to help out your transportation system, even though this is kind of a land use study. The other point I want to make, Mr. Chair, is that I did look back at the 1997 build-out analysis. There's been subsequent build-out analysis done. I couldn't find those reports, but roughly 24,000 dwelling units were projected in 30 years ago in 1997. We're at half that now under this report of 12,000. Where that's going to be spatially distributed is one question, but I think it needs to be applauded that actually some of the work that was recommended in the 2009 master plan was done. There was a lot of down zoning of some residential commercial zones to more appropriate lower density zones, which did lower that build out potential of 24,000. I don't know by how much, so perhaps that's another layer of information we can add to that to kind of celebrate the accomplishments of the 09 master plan as we develop this update of the master plan to show that there has been some effort done to down zone areas where we don't want growth, but have up zoned areas where we do want to increase densities. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mike. And I think the RC2 that you brought up is a very good example of how we've reduced the density that could have happened here over the past decade. All right, I'm gonna move to the public now. If anyone in the public wants to ask a question of the consultant, please do that through me. Please keep it succinct and on target. So who was up earlier? Bruce Mandel. Bruce, are you still out there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Welcome, Bruce.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I am a member of the Nantucket Conservation Association and the Nantucket Area Plan Work Group, and I'm here to express some community concern. Nantucket's 11 neighborhoods are not excluded from the master plan, but were omitted here. You may recall that in the past, Nantucket and the community here self-funded studies in 2020 and 2022 titled The Assessment of Development Potential. It's done by the Principal Group, and we did this in conjunction with the Land and Water Council and other neighborhood groups. And while some of us understand the logic of omitting Nantucket, we clearly don't agree with it. In the past, planning department's definition of build out was mostly limited to new houses on vacant land. And of course, Nantucket doesn't have a lot of vacant land to build out, although there are some very large developable tracts. In the analysis that we provided for you, we of course looked at build out differently. It looked at what happens if Nantucket is no longer protected by the Board of Health restrictions. The scenario of the build-out analysis measures not only construction on empty lots, but the enormous potential of existing homes and the possibility of additional bedrooms just in Nantucket is in the thousands. And I know that the separate regulations are intended in part to control the number of bedrooms on properties, but currently the requirements in Nantucket is 1 bedroom per 10,000 square feet. And with that regulation, obviously a 1 acre lot can do 4 bedrooms. For the most part, Nantucket homes are significantly less than the ground cover and setback limits allow. But if Nantucket is sewered, and this is important, those Board of Health regulations go away, and owners will be able to build out their homes to the limit allowed for ground cover setback that you showed in your chart. There will, and we're seeing the potential for basement carve-outs because we have a village height overlay, but that doesn't prevent people from digging out basements. So there'll be no limit on bedrooms. No limit on secondary and tertiary dwellings. And this is a concern. We've already got a house in Nantucket at HTC that's trying to build from left setback to right setback, 124 feet, to add bedrooms, a guest house, and a pool. So we're concerned. And my question is, how can or how does Weston Sampson account for this type of massive build out that's defined by bedroom count? And by the way, those reports that we shared with you all those years ago show that once sewer is here, we could be adding 4,112 bedrooms in Nantucket. That's a concern. I don't think the infrastructure can handle that, but I think it should be accounted for in a study like this. Thank you.
Is that a question to Weston and Sampson, Bruce? I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr. Chairperson. My question was, how does or how can Weston and Sampson account for this type of build out?
Okay, I'm gonna have Dan answer that. I don't think it's in the scope of the report they've been asked to create, but I'll let Dan.
Right. No, that was as part of the sewer master plan, we did an evaluation of the build out in the various needs areas. Now, as Joanna said earlier, that that build out was not a max build out. That was more of what a realistic build out's gonna be by looking lot by lot, what's going to be built out. And we came up with a number of additional dwellings and lots for Nantucket. It's much less than that study that Bruce was just mentioning. This goes back to the point where I remember when Andrew Voss was around at the time, basically said, well, this is the information we're gonna have to take forward and look at and maybe make some zoning changes in Nantucket. If the town ever does decide to put sewer in, you're gonna have to address these concerns at that point in time to make sure you can't get this massive build out that you were talking about. But it goes back to your point earlier you made that it's maximum. That report said, yes, we're gonna put bedrooms on the basement level, and how many people are actually gonna max out their homes? You know, it goes back to, yes, you have that potential maxed out, but is it really going to happen? And that's where your zoning has to speak to that and address that to prevent that from happening if that's what the town decides they don't want. Now, as far as infrastructure goes, we can't look at sizing a sewer system based on maximum build out if it's not going to happen, because the system won't work. The pumps will be too big, the pipes will be too big, and you won't be able to build it that way. So what we look at is what's a reasonable expected increase. And that's where we sat down with the town, all the various departments, and went lot by lot through the needs areas and came up with numbers for each needs area.
Thank you, Dan. Yes.
Yeah, I think Bruce brings up a really good point that I didn't find the final master sewer plan. I couldn't find it on the website, but I did find the draft that you, Mr. Sheehan, presented back in 2020 in March to the select board. And the assumption was that there would be 3 bedrooms per home on the new areas. I'm just reading that from a footnote. And the problem that we have is that when people redevelop these properties, they're putting in 10 bedrooms. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
now
yeah.
we're seeing that right now.
Yes.
I mean, you saw that at the Fairgrounds restaurant where they were putting 8 bedroom homes in.
Yes.
But
So,
good, sorry.
oh, I was just going to say, I think the relevant question for our board, I agree with Dave's comment that that's not what we're asking this report to do. And so I think the relevant question for our board is, do we think we need a report that does that? In Nantucket, they clearly they funded it privately. They felt that they needed to point out that we were relying on Title V to control zoning. And if that ever stopped, they wanted to make some changes to zoning less. They have way, way more bedrooms suddenly and way more people. This build out analysis is really more about what could go on the land, not about how many bedrooms. We're not even, right? We're not dealing at all with how many bedrooms. That's just not going to be in the report.
I can just briefly, the assumptions there is that, we're assuming number of people, not number of bedrooms, but we're assuming like based on existing household size being, I think it's 2.78. We're assuming that the population, would be accommodated at that rate in each dwelling unit. So it's not bedrooms, it's dwelling units. And then the maximum amount of dwelling units for each zoning district, per parcel. So that's how we're calculating it. And bedrooms is kind of in the mix, but not what we were specifically calculating. Correct.
So you are going to get into how many people into population in areas, right? So I think we have to have a conversation about getting back to John's question about seasonal use versus, 2.7 people per dwelling unit is reasonable if you're a family living on Nantucket, but if you're a vacation property, it's just a completely different picture.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about that also, someone's building a 10-bedroom house, they're not also gonna have it full of 10 people year round. So we would just need to make sure that we're properly assessing that. And and then that goes back to what type of property to use, because people are bringing up the fairgrounds. That was one of the questions I asked when we talked about the development. They said that it would be the exact same sewer usage as what is in a restaurant today would be the same for all 8 homes. that's what we were told. Cause I asked that question, they said it's the exact same water usage, same sewer. Okay, so then, I mean, we could do that analysis, but I mean, I also don't know. If we're gonna be able to get sophisticated enough to that point to be, because I mean, if we don't know which are seasonal, which are not, if someone puts 10 bedrooms, it's not used year round, I mean, to Dan's point, if it's not gonna be, then you're gonna be overestimating, and then you could be really inaccurate on your sewer protection, so I think we would just have to be really careful to thread that needle.
Yeah, and so one of the things is the septic in Nantucket is a safety blanket for them right now. So one of the things I brought up in Nantucket area plan is if we see this coming or even do it now, is have a plan in place that if this is coming, that you can have something that goes to town meeting. It may take a couple of town meetings, but you have something in place that is as mechanism to protect it. Because the moment sewer goes in there, everything changes though, Nantucket. Like the history, all that's gonna change. It's gonna be massive development up there. And then there's one landowner, I think the person owns 6 lots. And when they put in that division of 10,000 square feet, 1 bedroom, that all goes away. Now all of a sudden there's 6 lots available that someone's gonna tie into sewer. So it really is something that needs to be studied. And I know that's not really what they're looking at, but as far as what we should be talking about, that could skew these numbers. Nantucket could be, I don't want to go double, but maybe 1/3 more housing, more bedrooms as well, et cetera.
The worst case scenario.
Yeah, it's just, really
I
gotta be.
think we all agree.
And this report is kind of something for us to get ahead of a lot of this stuff right now. See what we can't do as far as planning.
Yeah. Bruce, I'm gonna give some other people a shot and I'll come back to you. Is there anyone else in the room that? Yes, stand up and state your name, please.
Catherine Slattery, 61 Nantucket Road. Also on the MCA board, and I think the one comment for you is that both Joe and Nat mentions that, a lot of these lots are being developed and they're not, they're going to maximum use and they're tear downs. And I had the exact experience of the home next to me, which was a year-round Islander home, which is now being developed with the 3-bedroom restriction and a 3-bedroom septic, but there are 10 bedrooms on the lot. And it's a short-term rental with a swimming pool. And without the blanket of Nantucket, septic, even with that blanket in place, this has occurred. And I also think it's really important to note that these large homes that are being built for either short-term rental or summer people require 20 to 30 year-round residents to maintain them. So you have lawn keepers, you have so many people that are living in dense housing that isn't fit for them most times that are maintaining these places. So when you think about this development, it's not just development of one dwelling unit. There's this whole cascading effect. And I think that's something that's really important for us to think about when we think about, obviously this is a sewer study, so this is more encompassing than that, but I just wanted to point that out because it is important for the entire island.
Agreed. Thank you. Emily?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Emily Molden for the Nantucket Land and Water Council. First, thanks for the presentation and update and the discussion among the commissioner. This is really great and helpful. I think just a follow-up comment to Mr. Mandel's concerns. Clearly, the type of growth and development that he's speaking to and that a lot of Nantucket residents are concerned about is different from what is the goal of this particular analysis and report. But it is important to consider for those needs areas in particular who are slated to come on to sewer in the future. And I think that it's one of the benefits of having, like the Nantucket group has, come together to work on an area plan so that the town and the community can get a sense of what they want to see happen in their neighborhood. And I think it's just really important for there to be a commitment, which I know there is, from the planning commission and the planning staff to be able to work with these neighborhood groups when they are coming on board to sewer to just sort of reevaluate what is there now. And as I think was discussed, to point out when those Title V restrictions are taken away, what type of growth and development could there be? I think we've seen some changes in how properties are developed in Monomoy and other areas that have come online with sewer in the past. So I agree. I think that's somewhat different from what this report is looking to do and analyze, but I really appreciate this discussion because I think it's important for those communities that are going to be tied in the future. I had just two other questions that I'll put out there for now or for later. One, I don't want to open a can of worms, but I just wanted to confirm, I'm presuming that this analysis is sort of being done without looking at the potential addition of the ADUs from that. I just sort of wanted to make sure that we're all on the same baseline. And then the other question was just a little more forward thinking, I think, in looking at some of the considerations for next steps and being in the master plan update process. Once this report is finalized and we have this information, what do those next steps look like as far as thinking about how these numbers and projections to 2050 impact and implicate our other infrastructure like water and ferry service, electricity use? Is that something that then this commission and the town will start to think about and figure out whose responsibility it is to sort of look at that? I'm just kind of interested in the big picture. Where do we go from there? Thank you.
On the ADU piece, I think that we're not looking to increase more dwelling units with the ADU, right? So so I don't think that that's gonna skew this. I don't think we're, we have a tertiary ban at the moment, and I don't foresee, I don't think anyone is in favor of 4 dwelling units per property, so I don't think that would skew this that much, but I also think at the same time, the sewer department, the water department, they do their own planning, right? And so, of course, will be shared with them, but I think that that's a discussion to have with them and make sure that they're keeping their eye on the ball too, but I'm sure they are. Yeah.
Barrett Consulting Group has been anxiously awaiting the build out to get wrapped up so they can include pieces of that in the master plan. So, it will be incorporated into that document.
Bruce. Oh, I'm sorry, Dan, and then I'm gonna go back to Bruce. I know you have to leave in a minute, Dan, so.
It's okay. I just wanted to ask Hillary a question. So Hillary, you said you could not find the sewer master plan on the town website?
That doesn't mean it can't be found. I just,
Well, I can make it very easy for you. I'll send it to Leslie and then she can forward to anybody on the board, the final version we have. If that's
Yeah.
okay, Leslie?
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan.
You're welcome.
Bruce.
Hi, very quickly, earlier in this discussion, comment was made by a member of the planning board that you're looking at what could happen. And I think that's an important comment. And I guess we're concerned about building our planning on an analysis that, while it meets a specifically defined scope, we can see from the discussion today that it's incomplete. And I think we need to take a step back perhaps and consider what's going on in terms of bedroom counts. I mean, that's density. So I just would like to suggest that perhaps maybe this is not a final report, but this is a step in the right direction.
We're hoping it is, Bruce. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, John Carl, I'm with the Nantucket Current. I usually just corner people after the meetings end, but I have a question for someone on Zoom, so I thought I'd just ask it now during public comment, which is, I picked up that the projection for how many, the highest possible number of dwelling units doesn't include the sewer district. Does the projection for the expected number also not include the sewer?
Oh, great point. No, you're right. The projected population growth and housing demand was meant to, it was done for townwide and would include the sewer master plan areas.
Thank you.
Meaning island-wide.
Yes.
Yeah.
Island-wide, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public? Yes.
Caroline Balson. Speaking of the press being here, this is a very interesting presentation, and lots of numbers that we're all listening to. You guys have more expertise in interpreting them than probably the members of the public do, because you guys have extra knowledge. And it just occurs to me that the way that the numbers are reported, it's like fireworks. It can go all over the place and give people lots of different impressions. And we're all working hard on the master plan, the whole community, trying to weigh in on that July 14th. And so I think that it would be interesting to hear from this consultant what they recommend in terms of public communications for our local press and how it's presented.
Thank you. Barry.
Director, I understand we always are a little concerned about maximization of growth out here, absolutely, but I'm afraid what's not being taken a look at as well too is what's the supporting infrastructure underneath it. For instance, if you look at Sconset, if you look at Nantucket, there's only 2 roadways leading in there. Okay, both of which take a fair amount of time to traverse. You really don't have supporting infrastructure, especially in something like Nantucket, where you can start considering a gas station at a minimum, some type of food store to supply things. So as much as you, and again, water quality will be another thing that has to be entered in and looked at as well too. You have to look at all of those dynamics that are going to come into play outside of sheer raw numbers and how they can be developed out. And now the question becomes as well too, how many people are going to want to do that with having that level of infrastructure available? Otherwise, what you're talking about is having to put more infrastructure in place. Good luck with that, I'd say. But again, I think there's a much more holistic view that needs to come into place here before that level of analysis can be glommed onto and say, we're dealing with that at 80 to 90% confidence level. So look at the other factors. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Barry. Anybody else?
I'm sorry, Catherine Slattery. I have a clarifying question, which I don't understand in the presentation. It said maximum new dwelling units is 12,000. Is that correct?
I have to go.
And that's 12,000 external to the existing sewer district. So I was wondering, what do we have for existing dwelling units? If 12,000 or some crazy, and high and sky, complete total build out. And then how can it only be 691 in the existing sewer district? Doesn't seem to make sense.
And then, the needs area, that includes the unsewered area identified as a needs area.
Joanna, do you want to tackle that?
Yeah, I didn't get every bit of it, so I'll try and respond and let me know if I didn't catch it all. So the 691, as Dan mentioned, was projected, sort of likely, not possible total. So the 691 would match up with like that 5,000 to 6,000 number we did for the non-sewer master plan areas. I'm not sure I caught the other piece of the question.
The total build out of dwelling units is 12,000 based on this report, exclusive of all of the sewer districts. And my question is, I don't understand how there can be 12,000 new dwelling units in non-developed areas, but there's only 691 in the existing resource areas.
So the 12,000, that's sort of the very maximum. We're saying there's a range there, but the very maximum build out potential, 12,000 units would be occurring. That would be a mix of parcels that already have a dwelling unit that could add 1 or 2 more, parcels that don't have any dwelling units but could add dwelling units, and lots that could be subdivided and then also, then add max units on dwelling units on each of those subdivided lots. I can't speak to the 691 in as much detail as Dan can.
Thank you. Dan, you want to weigh in on that?
I'm sorry, I have to run. I'm already late.
Okay.
I was supposed to leave a couple minutes ago. I will try to get an answer for you. But I didn't want to just hang up, but I do have to get running for a doctor's appointment.
Okay. Thank you, Dan.
I will get back to you. on that.
Thank you
Okay.
for being here.
Thank you.
So I don't think we're gonna get an answer, but if we get one, reach out to planning and we'll forward it on to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I think it just keeps coming up that it just feels like apples and oranges, or like there's some kind of false separation. Because we are concerned about the whole area, and we have this build out analysis done to forecast wastewater needs and upgrade our sewer system in 2020, but done with a most likely methodology. And then we have this, which is really, I think, what we want to see, but it's only part of the island.
But I think, and Joanne said at the end, that the two numbers are gonna be married together.
I think that's important.
Yeah, no, I think we all agree. Anyone else? Yes,
What is the number of existing dwellings?
12,000 and change.
I don't want to be quoted,
You
but.
said existing?
Yeah.
Apologize. Yeah, you're looking at the number of existing dwelling units?
Island-wide.
Island-wide.
But I mean, isn't the short answer though, is that there's vast swaths of land on the island that do not have sewer. I mean, that's the short answer, because there's big pieces of the island that have no sewer, so that's why that number's gotta be
The
lower.
sewer's in the densely
Yeah,
populated,
it's only-
more maturely developed areas, and I think that's why you're seeing that 690 number. But
Yeah.
back to the, how many dwelling units we have,
I think it's around 13, but
around 13. Great. Anybody else? All right.
Mr. Chair, if it's all right, I couldn't raise my hand fast enough. Just to build on that point, I was a little confused myself with that, and just to say that a full build out is very much going to be necessary for the travel demand forecast model that we're doing. That the future build out of that traffic model is going to be dependent on the future dwelling units and whatnot. So I need to know that number as a user of this report. So appreciate you all kind of leaning on that. Thank you.
Yep, I think the intent is to have both those numbers together in the final report. All right, do we need to take action on this?
no action, but I do just want to remind everyone, this was a presentation, it was an overview. We haven't received the final full report, but it will have a lot more detail. And we are right on schedule to adopt it. It's supposed to be adopted by the end of June. And here we are. So we probably need to schedule adoption of it at your July meeting, but nothing for tonight.
Oh, so we'll have it in the next month.
We should have it in the next month.
Okay, Joanne, thank you very much.
Can I make one suggestion? Can she number the pages?
Absolutely, they are, and they will be, absolutely. Thank you all so much for your time, and we look forward to following up.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing the final report. Thank you. Okay. Mike, I think the floor is yours. Got the transportation program manager update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After that long presentation, I'll try not to linger too much on these set of slides, but there's a few actions that I need from the board. The first item is a reallocation of funds in the current 2025 Unified Planning Work Program. This is an exercise that we do about this time every year. Since our budgets are created a year in advance, at this point in time, we got to reallocate funds to kind of calibrate how we're using our time. I'm not going to read through all of this table, but just let you know that I did spend a lot more time on program management and 3C program management than I did in long and short range planning. So this reflects a lot of that, those changes. And again, because the UPWP budget was approved about a year ago, June of 2024, I need to move some funds around from the planning and performance measure tasks to the management and data collection, parking and implementation tasks. And I would request action from you all to approve the FFY 2025 UPWP budget reallocation as presented, so I can submit that request to Mass DOT.
Great. Board manager, questions on?
Sorry, we're being asked to approve the budget reallocation. That's it right now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I would.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget reallocation as presented by Mike.
Sorry, time out. Is Nat still on?
No.
Yep,
Okay.
I'm on.
Okay, you gonna vote on this stuff, Nat?
Yes, sir. They haven't come and hijacked me yet.
Right, that's awesome. I just wanted to know whether I have to roll call vote or not, and I guess I do. So, motion made by Abby, seconded by Joe. Abby,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Christina,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Hillary,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well.
Bert was on earlier.
Oh, was Bert still there?
I'm still here.
Oh gosh, Bert, I'm sorry. Bert,
Aye.
thank you. I'm sorry, I just can't see everyone on the screen, so I'm playing
We
blindfolded.
didn't want him to be left out.
All right. Okay, Mike, do you have more for us?
Yes, you have a 2026 Unified Planning Program that's been out for public review for the last 30 days. Just to refresh for those that are new to the process, the UPWP outlines all the tasks that are conducted within each year. The tasks are included in a long-range transportation plan, which outlines 20 years of tasks and projects that should be implemented, and a lot of the information that's developed through the what's funded in the UPWP includes projects in the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program, which ultimately gets put into the statewide Transportation Improvement Program. Just as a funding note, our funding increased 2% this year from last year, and it's $337,187 for salaries, overhead, and expenses such as travel, consulting fees, and equipment. Here's a breakdown of this year's budget. Spoiler alert, probably this time next year, we're going to be amending this like we did this evening. But this shows how it's all kind of allocated with the different tasks, such as data collection. We need to continue development of a transportation data dashboard, which if you Google Nantucket traffic data, you can look at the dashboard as it's now. We're going to expand that to using the 6 additional counters we just purchased, so that's just going to grow. But I also like to spend time on developing the next long-range transportation plan, syncing that with the master plan and the town strategic plan, as well as implementing a parking management program for over this next fall. And we did get comments from Mass DOT. There's new leadership at the federal level. That leadership has asked that we remove terms such as equity and environmental justice, so those have been removed from the documents. I've also updated the signature page with some date errors that were in there, and that document's in your packet or online for your review with Mass DOT's comments. So since we did have a public review from May 23rd to today, this public meeting is to take any other public comments on the plan. Just so you know, we did survey over the last 30 days. We only received 5 engagements through our online website, far less than if we had like a particular study or pilot program that we get public input on. The work program isn't something that gets a lot of attention. But again, I did note that we did get Mass DOT's comments, and Mr. Chair, I would ask that you take any additional public comments at this meeting, close the public review period, and then approve the draft FFY 2026 Unified Planning Work Program. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you, Mike. Anybody on the board questions for Mike? Anybody?
Mike, I just noticed that the roster of members needs to be updated, and I guess, are we signing this with the chair pro tem? The chair needs to be updated.
David, I will be adding you to the signature sheet. I'm going to bug you about a signature later this week, so just a heads up.
Nat's coming back in a couple days. Okay, anyone in the public like to comment on this? Alrighty, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to
Close the 21-day public review, correct, Mike?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion to close the 21-day public review.
Second. Okay, motion made by Abby, seconded by Mike. Abby,
Aye.
Mike, aye. Joe,
Aye.
Christina,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Hillary,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
and Bert, please.
Aye.
Thank you. So, and I'm an aye as well, so that's unanimous. Then I entertain a motion to approve the draft UPWP, please.
Fine, I'll make the motion to approve the draft. Fiscal year 2026 Unified Planning Work Program.
Second. Motion made by Abby, seconded by Joe. Abby.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Christina.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Hillary.
Aye.
Nat.
Aye.
Bert.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, so that's unanimous as well. Safe streets and roads, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's going to be a larger presentation next month with the consultant, but I thought it would be helpful to just quickly review the schedule and some of the goals and visions of the safety improvement program. You might recall this safety action plan is an effort with the Martha's Vineyard region as well as Franklin County regions. We got a federal grant to do this analysis of 5 years of crash statistics to come up with recommendations for improving safety in the community. This meeting is used to just, again, share the vision, goals, and project locations. And there's a schedule to kind of notes that the July meeting will be used to do a full presentation to the Planning Commission. And then at the August meeting, close a public review period of that draft action plan and take any other public comments later at your August meeting. And then in September, before we close out the grant and the contract with the consultants, we'll make all the edits that need to be made for the final document. The vision is the same as the long-range transportation plan, a safe, accessible, and affordable transportation system with vehicle limitations that is sensitive to the island. Keeping that vision for our safety plan, since it's the overarching transportation vision, it's part of specific goals. A required goal is actually taking a goal to reduce fatality and serious injuries. And the language in this plan right now is being proposed to include in the draft, reducing those fatal serious injury crashes by 50% by 2030 and 75% by 2040, which we get about 4 of these serious and fatal crashes a year. The idea is by 2040 that's less than 1 per year that we're on average, with an ultimate goal of being 0. You've heard this term Vision Zero. That's what it is any serious injury or fatal crash is unacceptable. The next goal that's required is monitoring progress. So we did look at 5 years of crash data for this effort. The idea is that going forward, we'll do this routinely and share progress with how we're doing and how we're on a path to achieving our goals, and as well as look at how if there's any tendency or trend changes in crash types or locations or severity changes. Other goals, and I won't spend a lot of time on this, but it's all about institutionalizing a safe system approach. If you don't know what a safe system approach is, it includes a lot of these type of elements that there needs to be coordination between public safety staff, which we do that through our traffic safety committee, a good public engagement and prioritizing safety in our communications, which I believe we do a good job of that now, as well as prioritizing projects and programs that we deliver to the public so that we do implement improvements that are intended to improve safety and reduce crash rates. The last item there is related to crash responses, and being an island, that's always going to be an issue with flights and whatnot on and off the island. But again, the intent is to have an effective response to crashes. Just to quickly go over some project areas, and I won't break down each of these maps, but let you know that the Bartlett Road corridor was identified as a corridor that with an array of safety improvements that were recommended for intersections, as well as bus stop accommodations and other type of traffic calming elements along the corridor. Surfside Road, the entire length or majority of the length that about the schools from Four Corners down to Fairgrounds Road. Again, most of these are intersection improvements, but there are pavement markings and delineating crossings on bike paths that are recommended along this corridor as well. Old South Road, you're very familiar with the Old South Road corridor study recommendations. Those have been incorporated into this study as well as other pedestrian and transit and traffic calming improvements. And Sparks Avenue and the section between the Stop and Shop and the Sparks roundabout is an area that's been highlighted as we've done this recently coordinating with developers in that area to ensure that there's a reduction in conflicts at driveways, and there's appropriate pedestrian accommodations so that there's no conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians, since that section is the area with the most frequent and severe crashes on the island. The last, well, I don't believe it's the last one, but on Pleasant Street, we did pilot a bike accommodation along the corridor. We got direction that of what is preferred for Pleasant Street corridor, which is a sidewalk and not a one-way traffic flow. So that's been incorporated into this plan. The consultant did highlight, however, that they are concerned with the angled parking that's recommended along the frontage where the Stop and Shop is. And that was part of the vision of the Mid-Island area plan to create more of a Main Street atmosphere. And I did have some pushback on that because we do need to have more parking options. And I believe that creates more of a Main Street aesthetic along that area that will contribute to safety by slowing traffic down. And so that's something to think about going forward. And Mr. Chair, there's no action recommended for this meeting, but like I mentioned, next month at your July meeting, you'll be requested to authorize a public review period from July 29th through your August meeting. The public presentation will be recorded and posted online on the project's website for the public to comment on. And I think that's all I have for this presentation, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you, Mike. Other members, questions?
Okay, I have some questions. Mike, so if our goal is in 5 years to go from 19 severe and fatal accidents to half that, it takes us like 10 years to build a roundabout if we even get it built. And the most dangerous area is, I think you just said, the Milestone roundabout area. So I guess what I'm saying is, how do we, if we're going to achieve this goal in 5 years of having half as many fatal and serious accidents, how do we boil all of these fantastic ideas that are data-based down to really what are the couple things that are affordable or achievable that we can do in 5 years that will keep more people alive? I mean, I think if we're going to have a plan, that's how we have to approach it, because we can't do everything, and some of these things we can't do in 5 years.
Mr. Chair, just as a measuring success on this, making sure we're on the right path, this says by the year 2030, those fatal and serious crashes will be reduced by half. So in 2031, 2032, we'll do an analysis. We'll look back at from 2025, this year, to 2030 and see what the numbers come out to be. If that averages, 1.9 a year, then I would consider that to be a success. How to realize that, not only, it's not just all capital improvements to fixing intersections and providing paths. A lot of it is ensuring safe speeds, ensuring that existing roadways are as safe as they can be under their existing configuration with markings and crosswalk markings or in appropriate locations, that developments that are approved actually reduce conflicts at certain driveways, and that there's actually a culture of safety within the community that we all embrace, and that we all believe that it's unacceptable to have serious fatal crashes, to travel at unsafe speeds, to have vehicles that are not appropriate for the roadway, they're uninspected, or have other features that would have the vehicle create a situation. And it's the driver themselves. Like 20% of crashes involve a cell phone. So we'll reduce this by 20% just by not texting and driving. That's an easy fix. Just do not text and drive, down 20%. But also DUIs. And Mr. Chair, I don't know what we do about deer collisions, but we have a very high crash rate involving deer, and we've shared those in previous meetings on maps, and it's a higher, and I don't know what you can do about that, other than drive slowly and be cautious and maybe lower the deer population. I don't know, but those are all things. It's not just one thing. It's not one intersection that gets fixed and we solve the problem. It's a variety of things, and a lot of it's cultural.
That's great. Thank you, Mike.
So I guess I'm just saying, if we're going to have success, we have to message and very intentionally. And would it, there's so many things in, are you saying, Mike, that the way we will have success is we really do have to work on all of these things? And that my suggestion that we might boil it down to more of a focus that we message very strongly about, but that we would have to, the decision for this board would be, what do we want to focus on with your guidance, of course? Are you saying that that's actually not going to be a viable option? We really actually have to do all of these things.
Yes, Mr. Chair, it's focusing on projects that have the biggest bang for the buck, that reduce the conflicts and there are very appropriate countermeasures to identified crash concerns. It wasn't the Milestone Rotary, it was the section of the Sparks Rotary that had a really high crash rate. So if that development gets, if those conflicts are managed well going forward, we'll do a lot there. But a lot of it's cultural, and texting and driving, messaging to drive safe, the speed feedback. You know, we what I thought was a monumental approval at town meeting was approving 4 speed feedback signs. If that has any type of effect, I think we're going in the right direction. And hopefully we don't just achieve half, we actually achieve the 75% in 5 years. But that's kind of the point, is to have that holistic array of just cultural and capital investments, but also monitor this to make sure that we're on the right track.
And part of us on the planning side of things is for us to be cognizant of how people come and go out of property. It's about how we allow curb cuts or don't. I think that I think the holistic approach is the way. I agree with Mike. Yes.
I mean, it's like Francis Union Street. No one uses their blinker. No one turns signal.
Yeah.
You know, it's just kind of frustrating, and I definitely see a lot of accidents happening there and more. So it's just a little more etiquette, I guess, would be nice to help out Mike as well.
Well, I think
Maybe
public education.
Yeah, the campaign, he's done the bucket thing, so.
Yeah.
You know, don't be a stinky.
I know you're going
blinker.
straight, but I'm going to turn signal, please.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so no action on this item. I'm sorry, were you, any more questions? Are you good?
No, I just think that we have to have a focus so that we can message, but I'm still not clear if we're gonna winnow down, but I'll wait till the next.
Yeah, we
for
have,
the
this is the
report.
process, so there'll be more opportunity. Okay, so, is that it, Mike, for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, next is, the acceptance and approval of the town area plan.
Mr. Chair, Megan Trudell's gonna take the lead on this.
Hi, guys. So before you today is acceptance and approval of the town area plan. We are requesting that you open and conduct a public hearing on this, but that you ultimately approve and accept this plan. You may recall back in the late fall, early winter, Lisa Apperstein and Henry Terry had come before the board with a draft version of the plan that they put all out for board comment. Since that time, I've been working with Lee and the work group to incorporate any comments and changes that were requested both at the board level and at the staff level. We've made these revisions, met with the work group. The work group has ultimately adopted a final version of this plan that is before you today. So I'd say any questions I can help address. Lee is here as well. And that's the short of it.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, Lee.
Hi. I'm Lisa, for the record, I'm Lisa Apperstein. For the record, I was secretary of the town area plan work group until the death of our chair, Henry Terry, whose patient and effective leadership got us here. And tragically, he died just a month ago, less than that. So recognizing him, I also want to recognize the assistance that we got from.
Are they here?
See? Hey, Nat.
Oops. That's potent product.
Sorry about that.
Mute.
They're coming to get me and I wasn't off of mute. Oh my God.
So it was as much as 4 years ago that MPEDC came to the Nantucket Town Association and said, are you interested in creating a local area plan? That was Andrew Vorse and Judith Wegener, who gave us a lot of guidance. And not ultimately, very quickly, the town association said, we don't have a plan, and we're the heart of Nantucket. Of course we'll have a plan. And so my comments here are primarily thanks, because I did make some, yes. So the first thing that we agreed we had to do was get information from the people who lived in the town. And at the same time, the planners decided they would define the town area. So two things are happening at the same time. One is MPEDC helped us create a survey of people living in the town area. And the other thing they did is created and crafted very carefully, which is in the report, the boundaries, and said to us, you know, there's just enough difference between the commercial downtown and the rest of the downtown area that ought to be two separate area plans. So we do not include downtown, and we do not include the waterfront. The survey required a great deal of help from MPEDC, and I'm here to recognize that they gave it to us. Postcards were printed and sent out to every available mailing address in the town area, advising people that there would be a survey. And what if they didn't respond? We also had a public legal notice saying that we're interested in your input. We were able to track whether people came from the postcard or the public notice. And so, again, thank you. Megan, you've already said that the comments made by the commission have been incorporated. Our very last step in this is just to clean up presentation and formatting. The language is there. It's been approved by the work group. There will be no change in language, but somebody pointed out we've got 12-point type here, 14-point type there. So that's unified. That will happen in the next week or so. And folks, thank you for your assistance.
Thank you, Lee.
And I want to recognize and thank the hard work that all the members of the work group put into this. It's valuable and thank you.
Just as a Nantucket area plan guy, I just want to say, Lee, a lot of stuff that you set up, we brought into the Nantucket area plan. So I want to thank you as well as being organized and the postcards. I think it was extremely helpful.
And we're aware that there are others trying to do the same thing, and we're hoping that they will be accommodated. We know that Monomoy has been accepted. There's a Surfside plan, there's a Brant Point plan. Some of these have not been updated, but I think the ones I mentioned have been, and we're moving forward. So thank you for your work.
Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak to this?
Hi, I'm Lisa Hogan, and I do to help Marianne easily do the copy and clear up those thoughts.
Yes.
So, but what I wanted to say was in reading, I think in the draft, it's remarkable how, clearly coming through the language is the emotional weight and feelings of the respondents. This is not just a plastic piece. You can really hear the people moaning and groaning about the things that they're encompassed with. And I think to have that in a public document is terrific.
Thank you. So just very quickly, the responses came to 16 or 17 separate questions. Intersections, availability of Wi-Fi, commercial, small shops, reminiscent of what used to be, my children couldn't say Ravimbus, but it came out Ravimbus because they knew they could take a quarter there and get candy. And so that came back, the answers came back in some questions, several hundreds of them. And your former chair, Mary Longacre, organized this into pie charts and so forth. And I went through every one of the answers and collated them in such a way that we could see what the trends were. And so thank you for your comments. Much appreciated.
Carolyn. On the Grand Point, I'm from the Grand Point Association, Caroline Walter, we've heard that, it's helpful for area associations to have, expensive consultants, which is giving our board pause and concern. And I'm just wondering if anybody could address that, because I think it's, creating, resistance to updating our plan, which does need updating, and we're helping.
I could comment on that, but I think it comes from
Through the
over
chair.
there. Sure.
Okay, so traditionally, the work groups have been a very grassroots group where the people within the group do the work. Up until recent years, we had a staff person assigned, which we're going to go back to that. I think it really helps the process and it helps keep the group on track and focused. We have not used consultants. I know recently one area plan group may have used consultants. They produced a beautifully done, very professional looking plan that's beyond what most groups have done. There was another plan further back in time that also, I think, had some professional assistance, but it's certainly not something that's required. We don't want it to be, daunting or cost prohibitive for the group. We may or may not have resources that we can devote to it, but it's not really meant to be a fancy planning process. It's supposed to be, representative of what's important to the people in that area.
I think it's very helpful.
And you just need Joe, really.
And Mr. Chair,
I had all my free time.
Chair, if I may. The process of defining boundaries almost caused war between Brent Point and us, because I drew a line. And your predecessor said, no, children's speech belongs to us.
Turf wars.
Easily resolved. I think the critical thing that I would contribute to MPE and EDC is that a member of the commission had been assigned to the work group as a link, and I would suggest that that be retained because of unfortunate circumstances with Mary's resignation. We lost that liaison, but I think, future groups should have it. We also recommend that as you, the commission, move forward, downtown really needs somebody to be looking at. This is CDT, the commercial downtown zone. And perhaps even coupling that with the waterfront, since they have so much in common commercially. But that's in our recommendations. And we're more than pleased to help. We're aware that some group, nameless, but it's over there, did spend money, and it's a lovely report. Doesn't have to be. The important part was that the survey was organized with the assistance of MP and EDC and was done very professionally.
And I would echo, that's the same mantra we've taken at Nantucket. Let's get the information, go through the 9, implemented tasks we need to do, and that's been really good as a guardrail. It doesn't need to be sexy. It just needs to be informative and to the point. And as someone stated about having their voice within there and really feeling that and reading that, that's the important part of that. So.
But it's also true that it takes a tremendous amount of volunteer time. So if there's an association that's short on volunteer time and long on financial resources and would like to have help, I don't think they should be discouraged. But
No, we met twice a month, and tried to accommodate our members who were members of other boards, committees, and commissions, so that the people who are on HDC could also come to our meetings. And we divided up so that each of the elements, there are 9 elements in the plan. The first is goals and policies, which we treated as an executive summary. And number 9 was implementation, which is what we're doing now. But the 7 subject areas were divided up, and the 2 or 3 people in each of those really threw themselves into it. Their call them subcommittee, if you will, their sub work group reports came to the entire work group and were thoroughly digested, reviewed and digested.
Thank you.
And given the hour, I think I've heard the quiet. So
Okay, we're good. And I just want to add one. I mean, I think the concern about consultants, at least for me, is that you can easily lose the voices of the people in the area you're trying to represent. And that's my only concern. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying if you do, you need to really make sure that it isn't just this glossy, great thing. And I'm not saying the one that was used consultant was, but I'm just saying that it really needs to represent the people and what the people want. So that's my only concern. John?
Yeah, I would say, Emily, that if you have to spend any money, it's on a really, really well thought out study. And, if you have somebody, we were fortunate when we had someone in the community that was good at that. But it was a task to get the survey done properly, get it out, get the right kind of questions on the survey that would be, couldn't be misinterpreted. If you have someone who can do that, that's great. If not, you may want to think about it. Have some characters to how to instruct that. And I can certainly send you that.
Caroline, the definition is the questions must be valid. And they may not be leading.
We used to teach statistics and psychologists, so I love all this stuff, but just to clarify. It sounds like you guys were helping, the planning board was helping with the formation of the survey. For those who did not.
EDC.
Right.
All right, so if there's no one else, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion made by Abby, seconded by Joe. Abby.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Mike. Aye.
Aye.
Christina. Julia. John. Aye. Hillary. Natalie, with us?
He's texting me saying he's getting rolled back to his room, so he. Can't.
Okay, Bert.
I said aye.
Oh, didn't hear you. And we're just gonna pass by Nat on this one. Okay, so I entertain a motion to approve the, yes,
Yeah,
just did.
so they accept and approve the town area plan, and allow staff to continue to work with some of the members on non-substantive formatting changes before it actually goes live on the town's website.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Joe, seconded by Abby. Joe.
Aye.
Abby.
Aye.
Mike. Aye. Christina.
Aye.
John. Aye. Hillary. Bert.
Aye.
Nathaniel. Still rolling. All right, I'm gonna.
I think it's being rolled. I don't think it's rolling.
I appreciate what you've just done, and as I get up to leave, the last light moment in Henry's life was when Anne looked at him and said, at Mrs. Terry, and said, "Do I get my dining table back now?"
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.
Good night.
See you. Okay, next item is an appointment at the 3-year at-large seat. We have Christina Jelmy and Joe Lewandowski. You want to say something?
Yeah.
Yep, okay, so, Christina, would you like to make a statement?
I would just like to thank you all for allowing me to join for the past 18 months. It's been very informative and enlightening. I feel like I've learned a lot. And I finally am starting to find my voice. I would really like to continue on representing the land bank as well as being an at-large person. And I hope you'll consider me for reappointment. Thanks.
Joe, would you like to make a statement?
I would.
The floor is yours, sir.
This is the actual ad that appeared in the newspaper. And it was interestingly enough, to me that I said, I think I'm in a this position. And that's how that came about, although as I was working on the application, that's really odd, because I've not seen an ad for any other organization in town, other than this one. In terms of my background, I'm a Nantucket homeowner, year-round resident residing in Mid-Island, 40B housing development. I have a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering, BSc in Business Administration from the State University of New York. I was licensed as a professional engineer in New York State. I'm currently a member of Nantucket's Conservation Commission and its Cannabis Advisory Committee. I believe NP even see this, my technical and financial education and experience with budgets, contracts, management, and planning. Some of the roles that I've had over the years is VP operations for a company with 4,500 employees, startup of a pharmaceutical distribution company, VP for acquisitions for a company with sales of $750 million, CEO of a startup Down syndrome testing company. I founded my own consulting company and ran it for 10 years. Co-founded a company that installs cancer and toxicology labs in large specialty physician practices. That's been operating for 20 years. This is its sunset year. It's going to sunset because medical reimbursement is going down the hole. I have a long history of volunteering. For example, I spent 4 years as an AYSO certified soccer coach. I spent 10 years as an adult leader with the Boy Scouts of America and 15 years as a U.S. swimming official. I've spent only 2 years at the hospital fish. So I'm behind on that. I have time available, plus the experience, interest, and desire to contribute to Nantucket being a great place for my wife and I chose to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, John.
So Nat, are you with us?
Yes, sir.
Nat and Bert should email their votes
Needs to email me.
to Meg.
Yeah. Everyone else, I handed out a slip of paper. Please write your name and who you're voting for, and I will read them aloud at the end. That scrap from over there, I'll rip that into two. Thank you.
Such a big deal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is it starting to get cold now?
I need to relocate.
Blows right out.
We can switch.
You just throw some of there because it's on top of your head.
For something.
Draft, Joe?
Huh?
Get drafty.
You get drafted. Moves my little hairs.
Actually, the fins like.
Just direct.
Okay.
Okay.
Bert, did you send me an email?
Yeah, I sent it back on the one that you sent to me with my with a meeting on it.
Okay, just came through. Thank you. Okay. So Abby, we have a vote for Christina. Hillary voted for Christina. Mike voted for Christina. Joe for Christina. Christina for Christina. Dave for Christina. John for Christina. Bert for Christina. And Nat for Christina. Congratulations, Christina. And
Joe, thank you for putting your name in.
Really
Much
appreciate it.
appreciated.
Very important lesson, because this is the second time it's happened to me. And that is the incumbent wins.
Most of the time, but not all the time.
Not all the time.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and don't give up, please.
Yes.
I think you have a lot of good knowledge that could be helpful for a board. Okay, next, this is an appointment for an at-large 1-year seat. This is, taking Wendy's.
Yes.
seat. Okay. We have 3 people. We have Liz Coffin, Liza Haddon, and Howard Matz. I'm gonna start with Liz Coffin, if you'd like to make a statement.
Yes, because I'm coming to you out of my immediate concern with my immediate neighborhood.
Can the folks on the screen hear Liz? I just.
Can Bert and Nat, can you guys hear Liz?
Can you get her on the TV
Yeah,
screen?
Liz, can you come up a little closer, please, so this will pick you up.
Okay, let me sit down then.
That's fine.
Basically, well. I'm coming in front of you as a candidate because my immediate neighborhood has changed so fast and so poorly, in such a poor direction. That I knew that something had to be, this has to be brought to the surface, looked at, and maybe that this is the best place to do it. I live at 47 Union Street, which is basically it's the entryway to the town. Because it's at that, the curve where Francis and Weymouth, and it's right there. And so, going straight in, I see, we experience everything that's coming through. So we have traffic problems, we have parking problems, we have pedestrian problems, we have tree problems. We have, because I live at the place where the floodplain meets the embankment, we have some tremendous water problems. Now the thing is that all of this sort of has been going on for a while. It's just that in the last 5 years, everything quickened up and clotted up all at once. And now it is noisy, confusing, unpassable with traffic. There's so many problems that I understood that since this was the beginning of the most important, what I think of as the most important zone for our economic welfare outside of the immediate main street, that the ROH, the old historic district, really needed to be given as much help as possible. Because if you lose the efficacy and the charm and the all the possibilities that the ROH presents to the outside world, you've lost what most people think of as a Nantucket. So it in that way, it indirectly backs up into an economic problem. So I thought, well, I've lived there for 75 years, on and off, since 1955. So I have a really steady look and presence. And I was hoping that that would, I could bring that to you and work with you. So that's my goals. Now, the other things that I've always loved is the landfill and the take it or leave it. And I want to see a salvage yard for the trades. And I want to see the take it or leave it, really enhanced and fortified. So there are things that I would like to be working on as goals. But I also know that the things, and these are there's some immediate problems that have to be addressed. There you go. I'm a retired book editor.
I have some questions that I wanted to direct to everyone, just two questions. First was how long you've lived on the island, either full or part-time, which you answered in your, and then the other one was, are you currently serving on other town of Nantucket boards? No, you don't serve on any
So
other.
in fact, if there's something, a weakness that I have is that I'm going to have to learn a lot of codes very fast. You know, it have to be a very quick study, should I get the possibility of doing it. But I have the time and the interest. Just as an example of the pain, there's a certain level of pain that brings me here too. When Herschel, my husband and I were the only people walking on that street, Union Street, from the beginning and into town. We were absolutely the only people there, January, February, and March. And then come August, we will have the cars backed up all the way from town into my yard. So we suffered the most of radical, of high contrast between the winter and the summer. And somehow we have to work at rebalancing that. So that's what I bring to, that's what my guidelines of interest. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Liza Hatton.
Hello. So I did not prepare anything formal, but I think I know all of you. I'm Liza Hatton and I've lived here for 14 years year round. I grew up summering here, so starting in the mid-80s, I've been coming here. In college, I worked here seasonally, so I'm familiar with the island from many perspectives. I'm currently a real estate broker, so I travel all over the island by car. I am very familiar with lots of intersections, properties. I am aware of like what's kind of going on in the background from what we talk about in the office. So, and like what my clients talk about. So, I think I have a pretty well-rounded view of what's happening here. I'm also an avid runner and I've trained for 5 marathons here. So I know all of the bike paths and the intersections, both by vehicle and also on foot. So I feel like talking about bike paths and intersections and stuff, those are all things that I'm very familiar with and very interested in. I live in a covenant home in Sconset, so I have benefited from that and good planning. But also living in Sconset, I have a different perspective because I'm out there and I feel like it's kind of a different world. And I'm actually kind of curious if we even have an area plan there. And if we don't, I should speak to the people at the Civic Association and see if we could start doing something like that. So I just want to get involved. I'm not on any town boards. But I'd love to donate my time and take part in this. So I also want.
Thank you. Thanks, Liza. Howard.
Hi, I'm Howard Matz, and I am on the planning board.
and I am on Capcom, and I have the pleasure of helping this town solve its solid waste landfill contract issues by helping to negotiate that contract. There's representative of the community who has done many of those similar sorts of infrastructure contracts to make sure that we have a very fair and well-structured contract. And it's been a pleasure. The work on Capcon's been great because, and I think it really lends itself to some of the things that are here, because we meet with each of the individual department heads and talk to them about their capital projects and what their programs are, what their future perspective is and needs, and looking specifically at the details of their projects and questioning them as to why they're doing things in certain ways and kind of helping to refine their thoughts on that. And being on the planning board has been really interesting. I think some of the things I bring to it are not specifically knowledge of intersections, but really a bigger global view of what's done elsewhere. What is commercially reasonable? What's the context for some of the decisions that we're making, and why they're good ideas, or maybe why, in fact, they need to be a little bit more study or thinking about them. But I've admired the knowledge of the planning board members of the community, and I think that their specific knowledge complemented what I do. But professionally, I have done exactly what you guys were talking about. I have written these kinds of consulting reports, and I've used these consulting reports, and I have carved them up and kind of dissected them in order to be able to do the work that I did do and still do professionally. I have a huge experience in solid waste and sanitary sewer and public infrastructure. So looking at these sorts of projects and sorts of demands, like the sewer work that you're looking at, and how to interpret the information, what that means for the future, and what to do with that information. Huge background of renewable energy, and I think that's really an important issue for us as an island to talk about. And I also clearly understand the issues regarding the national grid and the cables, because that's my business. You know, this was also the power industry, so I think that that's really an important issue that we have to deal with here as a community. And I have, as a resident of this community and having been here for a long time, find that enforcement of these really great ideas that we make decisions on is kind of lax. And I really would like to make an effort to take these plans and these programs and discuss why and how they're implemented and how they're enforced, because I think our enforcement of our good ideas is really not as good as it could be. So I'd be really excited to continue to work in the same regard as I've done both professionally and as I've done on a volunteer basis here on the island. And thanks for the consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, the other question I had that I wanted everyone to answer. How many years have you lived seasonally or full-time on the island?
I've been here 5 years seasonally, and I live here all year round, except when I leave for vacation in the wintertime. And unlike anybody else here, I don't have a residence anywhere else. This is my primary residence, and I don't go to Florida. I don't go to Boston, go to Boston. And I'm here, and I do appreciate the concept of how empty this community is in the wintertime, and I do appreciate some of the things I do want to see some of the things that we can do to make it different in the wintertime than when we're coming in.
Thank you.
Answer the question. And I think that you have also personally raised to me the question of independence as a perspective that someone should be bringing to this. And having thought about your question for 2 days in independence and seeing that you are both on the planning board and on this commission as well, I think I bring to these two groups the same sorts of expertise and knowledge and background that you do. So thank you.
All right, great. Guys know the gig.
So Bert and Nat, you can email.
There's a lot more at that society.
I think you think so.
Teamwork. See, that was my idea, the joke.
Give Bert a second to get through.
Oh, you got it.
We were
Call
gonna-
yourself, I might have just gone and write it down.
Okay. So Hillary has voted for Liz Coffin. Abby has voted for Liza Hatton. Joe has voted for Liza Hatton. Mike has voted for Liza Hatton. Christina for Liza Hatton. Dave for Liza Hatton. John for Howard Matts. Nat is for Liza Hatton. And Bert is for Liza Hatton. So congratulations
Congratulations.
and thank you.
That's Howard.
Thank
See you on Monday nights anyway.
Exactly.
Thank you everyone for putting their name in. I know it's not easy to do. Don't give up if you didn't win. Try again. All right, we're on the committee reports. Anyone have a committee report they'd like to give? Nat, how's the hospital food?
There's a pizza on the menu tonight that isn't bad. I might get a second one in a little while.
I'm not sure that's cardiac diet, buddy. Better send that back. We have no committee reports. Everyone's good. Okay, then, I would,
Motion to adjourn.
second. Motion made by Abby, seconded by John, or Mike, did you?
John,
John.
beats it too.
Abby,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Christina,
Aye.
Hillary,
Aye.
Bert,
Aye.
Nathaniel.
Aye, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair,
see you soon, buddy.
Mr. Chairman.
Cheerleaders
That would be, pro tem, buddy. It's over. The
Mark,
meeting's
on the 5 o'clock tomorrow.
I go back home to my planning chair position.
All right, bye everyone.
Then that's a good card. The, or like a, what was it again, chart? Yeah, the schedule. So we have one already. Except it ended, and we didn't update it with her contract update, so she's gonna do